Welcome everyone, welcome to Pegasus Farm, and welcome to our beautiful new Michelle Arnold Education Center. It's great to see everybody today. I'm glad you all were able to spend a little bit of time with us this afternoon. It is an incredible honor to also welcome our special guest today, Sydney Collier. I'm not going to say a lot about Sydney in my introduction because she's going to tell her story far better than I ever could.
I talk a lot.
And she's a great talker. She's a wonderful conversationalist. So you will really, really enjoy this presentation. Sydney is incredibly inspiring. For those of you, has anybody ever heard of the book, The Little Engine That Could? Okay, great children's story. All right. Sydney is the little engine that could, personified, and then some. She has an amazing story and has had an amazing journey. She will, as I said, tell it far better than I can, and I'm going to turn it over to her so she can start telling you her story. So welcome and enjoy.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
Thank you for the introduction. Okay, so who is Sydney Collier? We're going to solve this mystery today. Basically, I'm sort of like your average horse crazy teenager. I started riding when I was 7 years old. I actually started riding as an eventer, and from the moment that I set foot on a horse, I was like, yes, I have found my place in the world. I was always that kid, like, out on the soccer field picking dandelions. It was never my thing. I tried every single sport to no avail, and then I got on the horse, and I just knew it was what I was meant to do. And from that day forward, I was like, okay, this is what I need to do. But then a cascade of events just like set my world into a crazy spiral. I got diagnosed with a really rare medical condition called Wyburn-Mason syndrome. Wyburn-Mason syndrome is basically a birth defect where you have a tumor deep inside your brain and one behind your right eye. And they're not your average tumor. They're basically where the veins and the arteries don't separate with capillaries. So they lead to these areas with super high blood flow. And it was completely by chance that I even got diagnosed at the age of 7, because most cases are diagnosed after a patient dies from a massive bleed. So it was kind of a miracle. And the doctors that diagnosed me basically said, take her home and pray that she doesn't pass away. And my mom was not willing to take that for an answer. She was like, that's not going to happen. So after a whole lot of searching, we found a doctor in California who would agree to treat me. And so we made the journey from Michigan, Ann Arbor, Michigan, to Stanford Medical Center in California. And they actually, as you can see, that big machine right there, that's CyberKnife radiation. They decided to do a course of CyberKnife to see if that would shrink the tumor in my brain. And that takes 6 months to 3 years to see if it's taken any effect. So we came back after the 3 years had gone by, and it basically hadn't done anything. So they were like, okay, we are gonna have to do brain surgery, basically. A series of 5 embolizations, they were thinking. And after the first brain surgery, I had a pretty massive stroke affecting my left side, and I woke up in a body that just didn't feel mine, and I had no idea what to do. Really, I was lifting up my left arm, trying to do things with it. My brain had no idea how to process it. So I spent basically an entire summer trying to relearn how to walk in hopes of being able to ride again and being able to accomplish my goals still of making it onto the team for Rolex and eventually making it onto the team for the Olympics. I never set my sights low. I always had these gigantic goals, and I always wanted to accomplish them. And the main reason that I wanted to walk again was in order to ride again. And so the horses really gave me this goal to work towards. So I really, I have to say thank you to them for inspiring me towards bettering myself after, such a big setback in my life. So, after my stroke, I returned back home and thankfully got back to riding my pony at the time. And I didn't just settle for just flat work. I was like, all right, maybe eventing is a little bit too risky. So I was like, we'll tone it back to just show jumping. And my parents were like, okay, that sounds like a good idea. And even on the difficult days, the horses were always there for me. So that was really the best thing about that, and gave me an outlet that really helped me work on my mental perseverance as well as my physical perseverance. And physically, it was the best physical therapy I could have ever asked for, working from my stroke. Then, in 2010, at the age of 12, I was so lucky because my mom had found this thing called dressage, and we decided to go to the 2010 World Equestrian Games to watch and see what it was all about. And sitting in those stands, just the craziest thing happened. I had this aha moment. I realized, I was like, wow, if these riders can compete on the world stage with their physical disabilities, then so can I. And that was just the most empowering thing that 12-year-old me could have ever discovered. It just lit this fire even more in my soul. I was like, this is something I have to do. And I actually met my mentor, Jonathan Wentz, there, and he was actually competing there. And it meant so much to me because he took the time out of his busy competition schedule to take me in to the president of the USPEA and say, she needs to get classified, she needs to get started in her journey in paradressage. And that was what got my entire story started at the World Equestrian Games back in 2010. And so at that point, I was like, okay, next World Equestrian Games, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be on the team. And next Paralympics, I'm going to be on the team too. And this was all at the age of 12. My parents were like, really, Sydney, this is going to happen? I'm like, yeah, it is. I'm going to do everything in my power. And so I went home and I started training with my paint horse, Chip. And I knew he wasn't necessarily the fanciest horse in the garden or, in the world. But I knew that at the national level, he could get me pretty good scores because he was consistent and I could ride accurately. And being an eventer, I didn't know a whole ton about dressage. So I set out to learn the basics, learn what I needed to know. So I had a year of showing at national shows in Michigan. And then once my trainer decided I was ready, we actually catch rode horses at competitions all throughout the U.S. And what catch riding is, basically you go or you would go, that you're not allowed to catch ride anymore, sadly. But at this time, I would ride these horses, and if I was lucky, I would have about 3 hours-ish on the horses total before competing them in the international ring.
Wow.
And so for me, being at this point, I was 13 and 14, and so it really gave me this super adaptive mindset where I was just like, we're going to get in the ring, we're going to do the best that we possibly can on these horses that I'm sort of familiar with, and they were really incredible to learn on. And I mean, this year of catch riding taught me so much about different horses and how to think on my feet, that's for sure. And so actually, after the year of catch riding, I decided, I was like, I'm going to use those scores to qualify my paint horse to show him in nationals. And of course, like all good horses, he ended up going lame right before nationals. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And then a couple weeks before nationals, it feels like all hope is lost. And actually, so my Grammy ended up writing an email to Robert Dover, of all things. She just reached out and was like, I just don't know what to do. My granddaughter has been working so hard to get her qualifying scores, and then her horse went lame. What should we do? And he ended up posting this email on his blog. And people ended up seeing it, and actually, my trainer Wes's student at the time, Donna Panessa, she reached out to us and was like, hey, this horse that I rode, Otto, for the World Equestrian Games has his qualifying scores. Does Sydney want to ride him at nationals? And I'm like, of course. Can we also borrow your trainer? And she's like, yeah, sure, I guess. And then also, this horse's owner in Canada reached out to us and said, I know this is short notice, but I have this awesome horse. If you ever want to come look at him after nationals, he might be really good for para. He has an awesome brain. And that came in later on. But so I ended up riding Otto at nationals and training with Wes, and for whatever reason, his training style, I realized, wow, this is where I need to be successful. So at the age of 14, I asked my parents, I was like, hey, Mom and Dad, can I move to New York from Michigan, please? and so my family, God bless them all, they made this gigantic sacrifice to move me from Michigan to New York to train with Wes, and after nationals, and it just was the best thing that could have ever happened. And through this, actually, we ended up finding Wentworth,